It's October 2022 in Milford, Ohio. Just after 8:30 in the morning, an 87-year-old semi-retired priest who asked not to be named is on his way to church to deliver Catholic Mass. But he's also on a collision course with near disaster. It happened so fast, I think we should slow it down and take another look. Check out how the SUV, driven by an unnamed teen, hits two thin poles and a no left turn sign. It somehow becomes airborne, just clears the priest's white Hyundai, then lands bumper first in a parking lot. Meanwhile, the priest's car drives off without a scratch. Milford Police Chief Jamie Mills says the incident came as a shock.
The first thought that ran through my head was, I hope no one is injured.
The black SUV ends up crashing into a building, but the police have no idea it nearly broadsided the priest's car, perhaps fatally, until they checked the footage that was captured by a security camera.
We didn't know he had leaped over another vehicle. This was an absolute miracle. It's unbelievable that no one was injured or killed.
The priest later says he didn't even know an SUV had flown over his car. So author Alexis Brooks wonders if it's possible he was being watched over by a guardian angel.
It could be the dust that's being kicked up by the speed of the SUV, but what I see here is something akin to wings. It could be that the wings of the angel were literally lifting up this SUV in order to avoid what could have been a fatal collision.
Brooks says the Bible speaks of God commanding angels to guard the faithful.
The presence of guardian angels have been replete throughout history. One that is known to many, particularly in the Christian faith, is that of Saint Michael, or Archangel Michael. He's known as the warrior angel and a protective angel.
Now get ready for this. The Ohio accident happened on the feast day of the guardian angels, when Catholics recognize the protective role these heavenly beings play in our lives. So, what should we believe about the priest and his holy Hyundai? Could God be at the wheel? Catholic miracle investigator Michael O'Neill considers if this near miss could be a result of angelic intervention.
It's common practice for Catholics to seek out the protection of saints and angels in their travel. St. Christopher is the patron saint of motorists. Our Lady of Loretto, the patron saint of aviators. And while we can't definitively say that this is a guardian angel here, we have a Catholic priest on his way to say Mass on the feast day of the guardian angels. Seems like a clear-cut case, in my opinion, of something that might be a miracle.
But is there any chance this could all just be explained away with science? Theoretical physicist Dr. Michio Kaku investigates.
This is a miracle made possible by the first law of thermodynamics, the conservation of energy. First, the black car comes in from the side at a certain energy. That energy, the kinetic energy of motion, is then converted to the energy of being thrust into the air because it hit that rail. So the energy of motion turns into gravitational energy, and then the car simply moves away as a consequence.
But since this all seems so perfectly timed, could it actually just be a Hollywood-style stunt? Yes, it happens. In 2023, this pilot was charged with staging his own plane crash just for clicks.
There are people who might say that this was a stunt for the internet, but perhaps signing up an 87-year-old retired priest to be a driver in a close call like this one, I don't think that's really going to happen.
And Kaku says the circumstances of the crash fully rule out something intentional.
The driver in the black car, a kid, had an epileptic fit, and so that's why he lost control of the car. I think what we're looking at is a miracle. According to the laws of physics, everything had to be just right, and that's what happened.
This video was one crazy ride. Our verdict? This is a possible miracle. If one of the world's top physicists just said so, we're in no position to contradict him. Maybe it was just good luck, or maybe an angel intervened. We won't argue with whatever you choose to believe. In July of 2017 in Zhuhai, China, it's a typical day as a motorist drives through a quiet parking lot. There's nothing to indicate that a potentially deadly tragedy is seconds away. Watch close on the right of the security footage as the car seems to hit a bump. And suddenly we see a child emerge from under its wheel. The car stops, but incredibly, the child seems to walk away unharmed. A similar miraculous video emerged from Nanjing, China in 2016. And yet another in Mumbai, India in 2018. Author Alexis Brooks says there have been actual documented cases of humans born with nearly indestructible bones, including a man in 1994 who walked away from a near-fatal car crash virtually unharmed.
The x-rays showed that he had negligible injuries, and the doctors, of course, scratched their head. They discovered that he had a very rare bone mutation. His bone density was actually 8 times more dense than the average human beings. When the doctors told the man of what they found, he said, "That doesn't surprise me at all. It's no wonder I've never been able to stay afloat when I try to swim."
Researchers at the Yale Bone Center later discovered the man wasn't the only one with these near indestructible bones. Do these kids have the same condition? There are a few open questions here. First, are these videos real or hoaxes? And if they are real, how did these kids survive? Let's turn to our experts. Video forensic expert Michael Primo runs tests on the video from Zhuhai, comparing it to what another camera recorded from an overhead angle.
From these two different perspectives, there is a consistency between how the vehicle travels from its passenger front side tire and its passenger rear side tire as it travels over the subject. Would that be difficult to manufacture the vehicle's movements over the subject? Yes.
So we're going to say this video is real, but physics professor Michio Kaku says in a small, almost miraculous number of cases, it may not require superhuman bones for children to walk away.
We think of the kid as like a small adult. So you realize that the laws of physics apply differently to the child. The child has a much smaller height off the ground. This car goes over the child very quickly, minimizing the energy transfer to the child, while an adult would have sustained maximum damage.
Dr. Kaku explains this in terms most drivers can understand.
When a car goes over a twig, the twig hardly notices at all. Doesn't necessarily break, because the time of impact is so tiny and the energy transfer to the twig is almost minimal. But think of a car going over a log.
The log is much taller than the twig and thus creates much more sudden vertical force between the car and the log.
The energy transfer is much greater, there's much more damage.
So, our verdict. The videos are real, and these children were likely spared by physics and tremendous good fortune. However, the vast majority of children in this situation would not survive. So always, always drive carefully and keep your kids out of traffic. November 2015. Just a typical day of rush hour traffic in the Chinese city of Xingtai. Then this. Take a closer look. 2 vans jump in the air and appear to suddenly defy gravity.
The van topples over as it hits the ground, and nobody knows what happened. It's totally freaky, doesn't make any sense.
But it's not just the laws of gravity that seem to be bending. In July 2020, a photo surfaced on the internet that shows the impossible.
Now this one really is weird. One of the girls, her facial expression in the mirror is different from her actual facial expression. Something like this can't be real, right?
What is going on here? Has reality suddenly gone off the rails? Physicist Dr. Michio Kaku explains that some believe it's proof our world is actually an elaborate computer simulation.
The fundamental premise of the simulation theory is that there's a mysterious, super advanced civilization that runs computer programs to simulate reality itself. They can create a world that's totally fake.
How would an alien civilization be able to generate our reality with such detail? Maybe we only need to look to our own technological advances.
In the 70s, we were playing Pong on a black and white TV. Now we have virtual reality. If we are capable of this kind of technological advancement, then an alien race that's millions of years, ahead of us could create simulations that we can't even touch yet.
So when a car mysteriously jumps in midair or a mirror shows a wrong reflection, simple, it's a glitch in the alien's computer code.
Not everything you see is always working the way it should. The computer's frozen, and some people perceive this phenomenon as proof that this is a glitch in the matrix.
Now, if you believe we're not alone, and you believe technology advances exponentially, it follows that an alien civilization may well have evolved to the point that they're running lots of big simulations, and we're living in one of them. But are these images proof or not? We first sent the bizarre video of the car to science writer and forensic video analyst, Mick West.
My first thought was perhaps there was some kind of water main break, and the water was rushing up underneath his car and pushing it up into the air.
West zooms in on the video. There's clearly no water seen underneath the cars, but he does find a clue in how the van jumps in the air.
It kind of jerks and then it's suspended. The only plausible thing that could hold up something like that is a rope or a cable or a chain.
Okay, if we're looking for a cable or chain, I don't see anything. But West says take a closer look at the right-hand side of the screen. See that large vehicle between the two cars?
There's a street sweeper going by, kind of about the same time that they get raised up into the air.
West did some more digging. Turns out this street sweeper is the key to the mystery.
What actually happened was there was a cable lying on the street, and this cable got tangled up in this street sweeper, and it pulled the cars up into the air. And because the video is very low quality, you can't see this.
So chalk one up for everyday reality. But what about the photo of the girl in the mirror? We ask our other forensic video analyst, Michael Primo, to take a look.
So I began my investigation by examining what's referred to as the metadata information. This particular image, I noted several consistencies with what I would expect to see as an original. I noticed no inconsistencies in the digital information.
Primo confirms the file is a camera original, but could the face in the reflection have been digitally manipulated after the photo was taken?
I look for any kind of inconsistencies in directionality of light, any kind of inconsistencies in the actual compression blocks, which is a X-ray version of the picture, which looks for areas of the image that have been copied over, duplicated, cloned, etc.
Here's where it gets freaky.
We would expect to see some sort of pasting of these two faces, but I do not detect any evidence of tampering of any kind. This is likely what actually was being documented in real life.
So it turns out those cars and vans can be explained pretty simply. Our verdict there, a tangled cable. But the examination of that photo is rock solid. There was no digital trickery, and who knows? It could be evidence that this reality is not really real. Our verdict on the photo, unexplained phenomenon. October 2017. It's a seemingly typical day in Luton, England. A nearby security camera is recording as a determined man approaches a small blue car parked on the street. He reaches under the front bumper and after a few seconds proceeds to not only lift the vehicle up, but actually push it backwards. Look again. The car is parked, but he's able to push it out of the way in his bare feet. The man performing this incredible feat of strength is Hakan Akar, AKA the Incredible Tulp.
I couldn't go anywhere because someone blocked my driveway. So my thought process was I'm going to go to the car, I'm going to see how heavy it is, decided to lift it. I started just pushing and pushing and pushing until the car was actually veering off into the road.
Hakan isn't the only modern-day Hercules caught on camera treating a car like a children's toy. This video from Russia in 2016 shows a man overpowering this vehicle's acceleration. So how are these guys doing this?
Some have speculated that there might be a genetic mutation behind super strength. There's a protein called myostatin, which typically inhibits the growth of muscles. But if you have this condition that limits myostatin, your muscles will actually grow bigger.
Artificial substances can also be involved, pushing the limits of human strength. Steroids are the modern method, of course, but the practice goes back ages.
We know that warriors in South America from Aztec and Mayan cultures would often ingest plants that contained what we would sort of call narcotics today for the purpose of getting ready for combat.
Mescaline, which naturally occurs in cacti such as peyote, were common sources of such drugs.
It reduces fear, but it also opens up blood vessels. It opens up how much oxygen the body can take in.
Hakan assures us that's not what's giving him his strength.
I've never took anything in my life. I've always been naturally quite strong. And then once I started actually going to the gym and training, I realized that my strength levels were quite high.
So Hakan's superior strength really is the result of nature and regular trips to the gym. But is his ability to move an entire car as impressive as it looks to the rest of us? Or is there something else at work here? Let's have our experts do the heavy lifting. Dr. Hakeem Olushehi says Hakan's physical strength is part of the equation, but he is also getting a big assist from an age-old scientific principle.
We know cars are heavy, on average around 3,000 pounds, but he's using one of the 6 simple machines, and that is the lever. The front tires are where the fulcrum is located, and he's basically just lifting it off the ground a little bit, one end of it, and that's very different than just picking up a car and lifting it above your head.
Hakan has essentially turned the car into one big resistance arm that redistributes its own weight toward the back wheels, similar to how you can move a bunch of heavy rocks in a wheelbarrow. Professor Michio Kaku also says it's not the muscles you may think that are at work here.
We're not talking about upper body muscular strength. We're talking about his feet helping to push the car, and the car in turn is designed to minimize friction in the horizontal direction.
That explains why those bare feet seem to help as well.
My Crocs ended up getting flung off at the same time. I thought I'd get a bit more traction with my feet.
Hakan built up a greater coefficient of friction with the road, allowing for even more horizontal force. And as for the guy in Russia battling the accelerating car,
Look at the wheels. He's lifted the car off the ground, so that most of the energy of the gasoline is being used to simply spin wheels.
because this is a front-wheel drive vehicle, the back tires on the ground aren't powered by the accelerator.
He appears to be able to take a car's forward motion and stop it, when actually that energy is being wasted.
Our verdict? A blend of strength and proportional mass. There's no doubt that Hakan has above-average strength, but a variety of outside conditions are making the incredible Tulk's astounding feat slightly easier than it looks. It's August 2011 in West Allis, Wisconsin. Dozens of people are watching a seemingly unassuming acrobat flip over some of those gathered to watch, and his grand finale is eye-popping. Watch that again in slow motion. The stuntman runs full speed towards an oncoming black sports car. Just as it seems he will be hit, he takes a flying leap and flips right over it cleanly. And he's not the only one who appears to be pulling off such a potentially deadly stunt. In November 2020, a Michigan man was filmed flipping over a red sports car accelerating towards him.
Oh my God!
In another viral video, a British gymnast backflips over a speeding Formula One race car like it's nothing. These situations would end in disaster for most humans. Here's a memorable fail. Makes you wonder if this isn't another CGI prank like we've seen before. You may remember the guy dodging traffic in Colombia. And if it's not a hoax, exactly how are these men pulling this off?
There is this ability in some individuals to shift the rules of reality or the physics of oneself. There have been yogis who, while in the process of deep prayer, were seen floating, literally levitating above the ground.
However, some of those claims of levitation, like that of Yogi Sabaya Pulavar, supposedly observed by 150 people in 1936, turned out to be a clever hoax involving a concealed pole. So are these modern displays of gravity defiance also fakes, or the real deal? The current Guinness World Record for a standing vertical leap is 67 inches, and that's without a flip and a car careening towards someone. So is this really possible? And what to make of those failed attempts? Whoa, we asked the experts. First, Mick West looks for signs any of these videos were faked. Check out this example. Here the effect was achieved by combining a shot of the flip and one of a driving car taken later, but the Wisconsin flipper is different.
There's nothing that leaps out to me as being a particularly fake video. We see his reflection in the windscreen when he jumps over it. Here. We see the reaction of the crowd.
The shadows also line up in this video from the parking lot, but the video on the racetrack raises a flag.
You'll see right here, there's a large chunk of the rear spoiler missing. And not only just in that frame, but in other frames as well. There's a chunk missing right here. He's obviously very capable of doing backflips. I think they've taken 2 shots identically with the camera perhaps synchronized and composited them together. And they've unfortunately not done a perfect job of it.
As for the other 2 videos, Professor Michio Kaku says these stunts are certainly possible for certain humans with the right physical traits.
The key physical characteristics that these people have to have is coordination of their lower body weight. You want to be able to have strong leg muscles. It's the vertical lift from a dead stop that allows you to perform these gyrations in the air.
You can think of it like a spring. The amount of force that a spring exerts is directly correlated to how far you push the spring down and then how far the spring then expands back up. It's the same with muscles.
It also requires a certain mental acuity. You have to overcome the tendency to tense up as the car is coming at you.
You want to approach it in a loosened and relaxed state. You want your muscles to start out maximally lengthened so that you get the most force that you possibly can out of that contraction.
The single most important characteristic that you have to master is timing. If you take off too late, the car hits you. You take off too early, you land on top of the car.
So, our verdict. These stunts can be faked, as in the case of the racetrack video. But there are certainly people out there capable of leaping over a moving car. In the authentic videos, the talented stuntmen got lucky with the timing, but it could have still ended badly. So don't go trying this at home. It's late October 2007 in Hong Kong. A company called Gear Factor is filming what appears to be a groundbreaking demonstration. As the camera rolls in the parking lot of a typical residential neighborhood, the front axle of a silver Vauxhall sedan slowly lifts off the ground. The rear axle soon follows, and suddenly the car is hovering in midair over the parking lot. You can hear what sounds like an engine whirring, but the only propellers appear to be tiny and attached to the doors. After a short 1-minute flight, it comes back down to rest on the ground. The company posted video online, and the internet goes wild at the prospect of a flying car. Journalist Eric Grundhauser says the flying car has long been the unicorn of automotive engineering.
Since the early 20th century, there have been a number of potential flying car technologies that have been promised to roll out to the general public. In the 60s was a car that the government was almost going to roll out. Even in 2006, a company was promising to release a flying car.
Arguably, the first flying car prototype, called the Avro car, was designed nearly 50 years ago as a secret military project during the Cold War. Resembling a flying saucer, it would have taken off and landed vertically before it was ultimately scrapped. Yet Grundhauser says there are various potential models for how flying cars could work in real-world scenarios.
If you look at something like a helicopter, you could simply take off vertically, like technology known as eVTOL, which stands for electric takeoff and landing. This technology would allow vehicles to be much more maneuverable.
We see the propellers on the side of the Vauxhall. So is that what's giving the car its lift? Helicopters use rotor blades that accelerate the air that passes over the top as they spin to create lift. But these are complex flying machines that require hundreds of hours of practice to master. So have we finally cracked the code for a car everyone can learn to drive and also fly? Let's let the experts take the wheel. The video seemed so unbelievable, we had to pay another visit to Michael Primo.
You can see the glare from the reflection, assuming that it's coming in this direction, and we've got a shadow that is produced. Now, we know that these shadows can be produced artificially, but to this scale of an object in this type of environment, to manipulate that information would be very, difficult, especially when this car begins to spin. I would say that this is less likely to be something that was artificially produced.
So if the footage isn't digitally manipulated, could this car actually be flying like a plane or a helicopter? Physicist Dr. Matthew Shadagas looks into the science.
Rotors that will give you an upward lift countering the downward force of gravity require large enough blades that produce enough moving air to produce enough force to counteract the force of gravity.
So Shadagas crunches the numbers on the required force for this car to go airborne.
The force of gravity on this car is equal to mass times the acceleration of gravity. That would be a lot of pounds of force that you would need to counteract gravity. And these puny little blades are just not going to make it possible.
So if a heavy car model like this can't really fly with those little propellers, then is it actually a real car at all?
This doesn't seem to be a natural reflection. In fact, you sometimes see what look like bumpiness on the reflection. You don't have bumpiness on glass, but you do have bumpiness on a balloon.
We tracked down Gear Factor's owner, German entrepreneur Murti Ung, and he confirms that his flying car is in fact a high-tech balloon.
We are producing flying objects, flying solutions for shows and events. I never had the intention to fool anybody. It was basically doing some marketing with something exciting.
Our verdict, this is a promotional flying balloon that looks remarkably like a real car. It's part of a staged event run by Murti's company, which is known for its innovative flying concepts. So sure, you could say the age of the flying car has arrived, but this one's too flimsy to transport anything but helium.